Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to She Center, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _She Center _podcast, and follow us on Facebook at the She Center Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. A special welcome to my consistent listeners, the She Center community, and to you, our new listeners who are enjoying this journey of embracing stories of other women. I'm very happy to have you join us, and I'm truly blessed to have you. As we approach the festive season, I have a special announcement. This will be our final episode for the year. I'll be taking a brief break, and we'll be back in mid-January with more incredible, inspiring stories for you. In the meantime, take this opportunity to enjoy and catch up on any episodes you might have missed. Also, stay connected with our community on social media, where I'll continue sharing relevant content. Your feedback is also invaluable, so I invite you to fill out a survey. I have attached the link in the description below, and also on our social media platforms. This is going to help me enhance your experience. Thank you for your overwhelming love and support once again. Now, let's dive into today's episode with a fantastic guest hailing from Kampala, Uganda. Meet Cissy, a fitness influencer specializing in yoga and posture correction. Cissy takes us on a journey from her childhood, navigating the challenges of growing up with separated parents. She opens up about her young adult years, dealing with an identity crisis as she sought to discover herself and fit in. Stay tuned until the end to hear about Cissy's post-university life, where she believed she had it all but faced a life-altering experience following a car accident. Saved by a seatbelt, she discovered her passion for yoga during a challenging period, leading her to find healing and transformation. Her journey even took her to India, where she delved deeper into her newfound passion to help others. Cissy's story unfolds as she shares her move to Norway for love and her current venture, a thriving online posture paradise studio. Get ready for a tale of resilience, self-discovery, and the transformative power of embracing one's passion. This is an episode you don't want to miss out on, so listen until the end. Enjoy. Hi, Cissy, how are you?
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good as well.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
nice. Yes,
So
I am.
thank you so much for making the time to be my guest on the
I'm
show,
happy
as
to
I
be here.
said.
It's an honor. It's a
Yeah,
surreal moment, like from being kids and now, like, oh my God,
I
someone I used to
know.
look up to as a big sister, and now,
I know, right? Okay, I'm like,
Mhm.
Sissy has grown. Like that shows me that time is moving really fast. We are old.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Can't
So
afford to waste it, really.
definitely. And I am really like proud of you. I'm a
Thank
huge fan of all your content. I'm still trying to like the ones of back posture and all that stuff. Some of them I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not
you.
ready. I think it was probably you that got me into thinking about yoga. And I was just telling you before we started that these days I'm like, hey, yoga. I'm like, I can do it. I used to think it was like you make it seem so impossible. The way you like do your legs and put them
Oh,
like
really?
here. Yeah, it looks really like gymnastics. Okay. I like to start out by asking simply a question that opens you up.
Okay.
I'm exploring a question of what happened to you because I feel like after reading this book and trying to do a lot of research on like psychology and mental health, I think this book was right in the fact that in many cases we can ask, "What's wrong with Cissy? why, why is she always doing things like what?" Instead of asking what happened, what happened, like
What
why
book is that? Sounds
it's
interesting.
called it's called "What Happened to You," and
Mm,
they explore the question of like when people grow up, people always ask like what's wrong with this person, why are they doing this, why are they doing this, instead of asking what happened, because if you ask what happened then you kind of go back to where they were as a child and
yeah.
find out that there's trauma, there's all these other things that have led them to where they are. I always look at people as an observer and I'm like, okay, I've seen Cissy as a child, I'm seeing her as an adult.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference. What happened there? And I do believe that many people who see who you are right now might not embrace the new you or might not accept who you are because they are stuck on the old Sissy.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate for many of us. Like someone would be like, yeah, rest is this and this, or this person has become president, but no, we are still seeing them as the drunkard, Bobby Wine. We are still
Yeah.
seeing them as the drunkard, alcoholic, and
Yeah.
like people don't give grace to growth and stuff. So
I
I
don't
like
think
to
they
ask
even
people that.
intend to. People just don't like change. Even in
Exactly.
aspects they don't realize that they are refusing to accept change. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And that can really deny you the opportunity of growth because if you see someone else's growth, it's easy for you to reflect and be like, huh, if Sissy can turn into this kind of person, then maybe I can also. Or if there are
Yeah. Like
things
it's
that we,
possible for me. Hmm.
yeah, that's why I like to start out by asking people to tell us about their childhood and what and how they think it might have impacted the person that they are right now and how they see the world. And then we can go on from there.
It's an interesting question given that I was just in therapy like
Mm,
an hour before this or 2 hours. And
mm,
I was talking about my childhood, my upbringing, and what led up to this. And my therapist told me how the first 7 or 8 years, depending on which scientist to ask,
yeah.
shape who you are as a person.
Yes.
And that just made me more aware, self aware, in a sense that I was very meticulous to make sure I told her everything because I was like, oh, I don't want to leave this part out in case it's
Yeah.
important. And yeah, my childhood started off in a loving home with my mom where
Mm,
I was so happy, so loved. She's my best friend up to this day. And I feel like a lot of that is influenced by the fact that never did I feel like she wasn't in my corner. She was always in my corner.
yeah.
Even when I was in the wrong, she would talk to me nicely in a sense that I'm not happy about this, but I'm on your side. Or maybe there is a dispute with my sisters or anything. She'll tell me, even your sisters think this, Sissy. Come on, like if I got in trouble, like there's a time because at some point I was staying with my dad, I think from like 10 years or 9 years. And then we weren't allowed to take the nice dishes, utensils to school. And
Yeah.
that time I did not want to buy anything. I felt like I wanted to use my money for better things. But then I wanted to take a nice, things to
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So I stole them and took them to school. So
Mm,
I told my mom because she was like my confidant. I went and told my mom, oh yeah, I took this from home, blah, 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 blah. She's like, okay, your stepmom doesn't allow you to touch those things and also you took them. I'm like, yeah, if I asked nicely, she wouldn't give them to me and all. And my mom was like, you can always ask me. I'm like, no, 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 mom, you always give me. I don't want to take your things. You don't have much. And then I remember at school, I
mm,
left school, came back home in the middle of the term, and I went to my sister's place. And then when I was leaving, I think that was the last time I ever stole something like that. I took her perfumes without her permission. And
oh,
then she was so upset. She didn't, of course, come to school to embarrass me, but she reported me to mom. And then I was like, yeah, but you know, she's my sister and all. And then my mom nicely told me, but remember when you also stole your plates from home and then you say because they don't give them to you. And now
Mm,
here you're saying because it's your sister, don't you think this is a habit? It
mm,
was such a moment in my life, a huge moment in my life, because it changed my perspective. I'm like, this is wrong. No
yeah.
matter what the setting is, taking things
Mm,
without permission is just outright wrong. And
mm.
from that moment, I don't think I've ever stolen anything.
Oh,
So
that's
that's how much
encouraging.
she had such an influence on me. So
That's nice.
loving. So
Mm,
when I think of a mother, okay, yeah, of course, every mother loves their child, but
mm.
my mom really loves me. She loves her children, and I'm so grateful and
That's
happy.
mothers really do go all out. I like that,
Yeah,
which is very amazing. I'm glad that you experienced that.
yeah,
How was your
it's
relationship
a
with your
soft
dad?
spot. Unfortunately, death robbed us of the possibility of a
Mm,
good relationship. He died 10 years ago,
mm,
and he died at a moment where there was an opportunity because now I was an adult. It was out of this cat mouse of you're in trouble. I'm gonna, running away from dad. He's coming with his whip and all.
mm,
So it's like death robbed us of that possibility. And I appreciate my father, everything he did for me. Now, as an adult, I know my father really loved me.
mm,
His shortcomings in maybe forms of punishment or how he handled things were
mm.
limited to his own upbringing.
Yeah, yeah.
But the foundation was he was coming from a place of love, from I'm doing what I can for my kids. I want them to be better.
Yeah.
But that part of my childhood was not very nice. It was a struggle.
Mm,
It was like very many people living in the same space, and I think it also contributes to me liking being by myself because I craved for it for so long.
mm,
Going from my mom's place to my dad's place, where it was a huge community, I would say.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah, it felt like I was fighting for my life just to not drown in,
Yeah.
yeah, in the big family that was there.
Is there a part of you that loves big communities and stuff, or
The
does it give
thing
you
about
anxiety?
me is, for me, home is not a physical place per se.
Mm,
Like there
mm,
are places I like to be, like at my mother's house, but
mm,
for me, it's more within me. Like
mm.
wherever
Yeah.
I go, I have my home with
Mm,
me. I
mm,
like that company of myself,
mm,
and it's to a point that I will be going to see someone, or we will be maybe I'm with someone, and
mm,
we're going somewhere, which is nice. We're chatting and all,
mm.
but something about me will say, "Oh, I lucky wish I was alone on this trip so I could
Hmm.
observe the trees, the beauty, like
Interesting.
just in my company, and
Mm.
just acknowledge, see where my mind is going, think about things
Oh.
without an external voice chipping
Mm.
in, which I love. I love my friends, I love my family, but I do like my company. And
That's nice.
the thing about crowds, another thing I found is that before I liked being in crowds because I liked the attention. It's like I was looking for some kind of approval, which
Mm,
in most cases,
mm.
not intended to, but lacks in big families because there's so much kids,
Yeah.
and in
They
most
want to
cases,
give you
just a
attention.
parent or
Yeah.
two. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I felt that when I was at my dad's home, and
Mm,
I felt like, oh, being in crowds, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be this. You're gonna be around people. You're gonna have attention. But now I'm at a point where I know it's not really deep. There's
mm,
nothing more to it. It's just shallow. And while I still enjoy it, it's not that I base the feeling of getting attention and that feeling good of, I'm in the company of this one. I just
mm,
know that's something I can only get within myself. So while
mm,
it's good to be with other people, exchange minds, talk, laugh,
mm,
at the end of the day, the reason I wanted to go there
mm.
was something they couldn't give me, was something within, and now
Oh.
it has made it pretty hard to want to hang out with people because I've had to go back and look through all my friendships and
Mm,
people I hang out with. I'm like, do I really like this person, or is it because I think there'll be a source of this for me?
oh,
And unfortunately, I've had to come to terms with the fact that I genuinely, it's not like I don't like these people, but
mm,
we are not friends. Maybe they don't know it because I'm nice to them and this.
mm,
But in retrospect, the only reason I wanted their company is because I thought they would do this because they're
mm,
like this, and my proximity to them would give me this value. And
mm.
now, yeah, growing up on an emotional level, I've had to like, okay, this one has to
That's
go the
that's
distance.
some serious maturity. I don't think I do like I really understand what you're saying,
Mm,
and I don't think many people are willing to have that reflection. I do like when I think about most of my relationships, you will
yeah,
find there's one who relies on you, you know? You're like you're the one like they need you and you're always like there for them because they need you. And that's probably the reason why you're friends. And then there are others who you depend on. Maybe they always approve everything that you say. They're affirming you, they're doing this. So when you actually come to think about it in actual sense, I think that's why many introverts find themselves in that space where they're like, let me just be alone. Or maybe that's why many people who might be extroverts, when they get emotional, like mental health support and everything, they later find themselves as introverts, because when you actually think about it, as extroverts, we just like to be around people. We don't want to be alone. We
yeah.
just want to be alone with our thoughts. We don't want to do what's going on up here. We
It's like
just
a
want people to.
nice step.
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And for me, that's what I also had to find out in 2020. It was like, why am I craving to go and hang with people? Why am I doing this? Some of them I really know, like we're not even friends, but why am I craving this?
Yeah,
And then
like
you're
what?
like,
Why do I need to go out and have a party so that we are doing shots? Why
exactly,
do I need to be drunk?
exactly.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like having fun, getting tipsy and all, but I still can't find a reason as to why.
Yeah,
Like, why do you
yeah.
need this to have fun?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah,
You know, I love it
exactly.
because at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to have a
Mhm.
glass of wine because I like having a glass of
Yeah,
wine, have conversation and all. But
yeah.
what I'm not allowed to is to
Mm.
depend on that as a source of
Of
happiness
joy.
or fulfillment.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's
Yes,
like,
yes.
and now I'm looking at it because I'm reading some book I really love, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. He's actually, I think, a German guy, but
Mm-hmm.
he talks about the purpose of relationships.
Mm.
It could be, intimate or platonic,
Mm.
but
Mm.
really at the bottom line, the
Mm.
purpose of a relationship is to reveal and
Mm.
help you find salvation. And how
Mm.
you do that is undo all these unconscious or inflexible things that are not part of you. So maybe being with your family, the politics you're having, that's
Mm.
like showing you something that you didn't know
Mm.
existed.
Mm.
You're arguing, you're this, and it's
Mm.
like it's helping you see these habits that you need to work on to get rid of.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just can't
yeah.
promise yourself, I won't do that. No.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. It always reminds me of the things I still need to work on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, like what you were saying about what this book is telling you. So,
Mm,
this means that when you are alone, it's easy for you to think you've changed some habits. For instance, I'm not going to punch emotions. I'm not going to like remind you of what you did to me this number of
mm,
years ago. I am going to be kind. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be this. Like I'm not going to be my old self. But
yeah,
then when you're in the crowd, even
yeah.
if you're
That's a real
actually, yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
Yeah,
So then you have to face the things that you thought you had fixed,
yeah.
and now you're like, oh my God, it's so much easier to be a different
There's,
person when
there's
you're
some
alone.
book, something meditations. I've forgotten it, but I have it on my Kindle. Maybe I can send it to you after. It's by one of my favorite authors, and he's
Mm,
basically quoting huge figures in
mm,
history, Greek gods, and things like that.
mm,
And I don't remember who said it, but he said that you can't uproot yourself from a society to find peace. and say, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go off in the forest or,
Mm-hmm.
be alone and all.
Yes.
You
Yes.
need to
To be.
stay there
Yes.
and
Yes.
find the zen right there where it's challenged
Yes.
and continue
Yes.
existing. So,
Mm.
which is really hard because I've told myself I'm going to be like this. And then you go to Uganda and, and I'm like, but
Oh,
I'm like, I don't want to go back there because they make me this. I'm like, yeah, don't
yes.
victimize
And that's
yourself.
there.
It's
No
not
one is making you.
safe. Yeah,
Exactly. Yes.
but
That's
then I realized
very, very
I
true.
get to practice. Like, okay, are
Yes.
you aware of what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing? Yes, I'm yelling, I'm screaming. We are
Yeah.
talking on top of each other, so calm down. Yes,
Yeah.
which I
Oh my
wouldn't do if
God.
I was just in
Yes.
my space. Yeah,
That is so so true. Even in Christianity, like it's like you get saved, you're this, you have become this person. And that's why many people cut out so many people out of their lives, even their families.
yeah,
The thing is, they say you have to be in the storm and be at peace for
yes,
you to say that you are a peaceful person.
yes,
You can't always be isolated and say, "Oh, I'm a peaceful person." No, you have to be in a crowded place, and now that's the challenge I'm still facing. Okay, maybe you can share with us about your later young adult years and the big change of who Cissy is
oh,
now. Like, how
my
did you
young adult years.
change?
No,
Yeah.
I basically went from home
Mm-hmm.
to university
Mm,
where now I was trying to juggle life with, that's when I met you and
mm.
my friends. We were all young adults, finally free. Yeah. Now we
Figuring
do
out life.
whatever we want. Yeah. Let's go party.
Yeah.
And I learned very early that wasn't for me. The
Mm,
whole night scene in the middle of a dark club with lights flashing, it's
mm,
crowded. It just wasn't for me. I would always be like, oh wow, I'm really here just because I want to fit in, because I think this is what's cool. And I
yeah.
always struggled with feeling like I'm less than the people around me.
Mm,
I never really felt like I was like pretty. Like I knew it, like I could walk into a room and feel like, okay, I'm pretty.
mm,
But me being pretty depended on what other people say, which gets
mm,
back to this craving for other people's attention.
yeah.
So my beauty depended on, even if it was a mirror, the image I would see if someone has told me, wow, you're pretty, is different from the image I see when someone else gets a compliment and I don't. To
Mm,
me, it would mean non pretty. So, as
mm,
a young adult, I really struggled with that. And it's funny because none of my friends know that I struggled with that.
mm,
Like, Pesh had no idea, Paul had no idea. But when I look back in those moments, I felt like among the three of us, I'm the unpretty one.
mm,
And they always knew people. They always had friends, and I would just tag along and all. And I'm like, something is wrong with me because I don't have my friends. I have their friends. They're the ones who do this. So it was quite a very challenging time for me.
mm,
And I would just go with the flow and this. And then I learned very fast that I don't do too well in crowds.
mm,
Like a sheep in
yeah.
crowds. I just go. If Paul says we do this, I go. If
Mm,
Pesh says we do this, I just go. I
yeah.
don't stand on my 2 feet.
Mm,
But the thing is, I've read something in the book I'm reading, The Power of Now, is that you will either want peace
mm,
or you will ask for it. Like you either want it and you actively want it, or you'll
mm,
be forced to want it. And
mm,
then I think continuously going to these places, to these nightclubs and all, I got to a point where my body just couldn't. And people would just bounce back and like, oh yeah, I'm ready to go again. And then for me on the second night, I'm either dozing or I'm like, oh, I want to go home or this, I want to go back to. And so I eventually had the balls to step up and say, you know what, guys, tonight I'm not going because
mm,
I physically couldn't. So I
mm,
was forced to do that. And then starting to enjoy that, I'm like, oh, I actually like this. What else do I like? What other things
mm.
do I want to do? I'm like,
Okay.
oh, I've seen these nice things. My friends say these are cool. Oh, okay. How can I get the money? Maybe I should get a job. So I
Mm,
started working quite early because I didn't have like a cool auntie somewhere who's going to send me a phone or this. But there was
Mm,
that peer pressure. You should have a BlackBerry, you should have this. And Carol would always educate us this is this, that is that, and all.
I
And
know.
then, yeah, from there, I started growing. I got a bit of independence, money, and then made more friends. And I think my confidence started growing. But then I was still challenged with, now I've just gone from following these people to feeling like, okay, I'm enough with them and this, to now finding people who are like, who I felt like was superior to me, and then
Mm,
just falling back into the old pattern, just
oh,
rinse and repeat. And it got to a point where I felt like, now I'm just conquering people. I'm like, okay, and it felt to a point where I felt this is normal, this is how it
mm,
is. I'm going to be with these people for a while, figure them out, realize they're not that big of a deal, get bored with them, find another group, and keep going and going.
oh,
Yeah, until, like, I would still be friends with them, but they would just not be, is it called a pedestal anymore? They're like, they've fallen off, and then I've replaced them with someone
yeah.
else who feel like, yeah, just rinse and repeat until I felt like I had reached on that top. I was now the one on that top.
Mm,
And life has a way of humbling you. That's when I
yeah.
got a car accident.
Yeah. Can
Yeah.
you before we talk about this, which is I know the thing that
Yeah.
shaped your whole life. Um, what I'm hearing is you struggled so much with your identity, yeah, in crowds and with your friends and fitting in. I know that you did a little bit of modeling here and there while you were
Yeah.
training, and I'm guessing that's the independence that you were talking about. I do know that this is an industry that's quite challenging in terms of, you know, what is beauty, who is who, and do you matter, do you do this, getting chosen for gigs. How did you deal with this? Because I know there are so many people at campus. I tried doing that stuff like for fun. I really like I really was trying to like to understand what I want. Growing up, I always thought like being a model was like it. Like I want to, but then I was like, after some time, I was like, what the hell was I even thinking? Like this,
Yeah.
this kind of life. My little sister is into this whole modeling and like taking pictures and being like in magazines and stuff. And I can look at her and I'm like, that's the exact age, 20, 21,
Yeah.
23, where you're feeling like, I want to do this, take pictures. And I know that many teenagers look up to people who are like that and think, wow, they have arrived. Or when you're at campus and you see your friend on the catwalk or on a billboard, you're like, hey, they have arrived. But people never really know what these people are struggling with. So maybe you can share a bit of how you dealt with this.
Yeah. First, I would go back to how I even thought I could be a model. I remember I was in high school at about 15,
Mm,
and my best friend, Nuru, she told me about models and stuff like that. And
mm,
then after we went separate schools, I stayed in the same school, she switched. But then that's when I met Pearl, and
mm.
she would hype me up. You should be a model, you should be this. So
Who is a
because
hype
of
master, by the way?
that, and now the problem is that I didn't really have or know my own identity. So
Mm.
if someone told me you should be this, I'm like, yeah, I should be that. They're right, because this is someone I
You
look
know
up to,
me.
someone,
Yeah.
yeah, who I think is this and this. And then
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, I should. Because I remember once Paul told me, you look like the girl who likes pink and all. And my favorite color was green. And then I changed. I'm like, yeah, right.
What?
So my favorite color is pink. Everything is going to be pink, this, pink,
Oh
that.
my God.
Yeah,
Oh, that's.
looking back, it's crazy. I had no personality. And then, so
Mm,
that's how I really got the idea of I should be a model because of
mm.
friends, not like I
People are
thought.
telling you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
So I tried it out. There was a lot of rejection because you could tell if you look critically that I was lacking in confidence.
mm, mm,
And it felt like in the industry, it felt like it was really skin deep.
mm,
How is your body? Are you tall enough? And then among the girls, there was some unspoken competition of, oh, do you have a rich man doing this for you? Do you, have this? And then,
Yeah.
at least in the industry then, because this was 2011, 2012, it
Mm.
felt like the girls who kind of had that were the ones who would, get the shows and all. That's how
Yeah.
it felt like in my eyes, the ones who are like already glamorous and this and that.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then I was looked at as in the hierarchy. I would say I was more or less at the bottom,
Mm.
partly because, of course, of myself. I was lacking confidence. My work
Mm.
wasn't that good and all. But I
Mm.
think also because I was younger and I was considered innocent. Like, I don't know those things. I remember girls who,
Naive.
yeah,
Yeah.
with like fancy bags talking about my man took me here. He drives this kind of car. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I never pictured myself as the kind of girl who would get that as well. Like, in
Mm.
my head, I would dream and, but I never believed like I would get something like that.
Mm.
And so there was a lot of rejection, which was really sad because I felt like I do actually need this money and all. And
Mm.
then feeling less, feeling really bad, like I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty, I'm not that. And I feel so lucky that I had my mom there. So for
Mm.
anyone looking to do anything like this or be in this industry, I just hope you have a pillar, probably someone older in your corner, to
Mm.
remind you that you are worthy. What
Mm.
happens, what you're told, does not reduce your worth in
Mm.
any sense, because I did struggle with that. And when I felt like I couldn't take it anymore, I left
Mm.
because I'm like, I'm always rejected. I'm always this. I'm always nervous. Like, oh no, I might be, I
Yeah.
might not get selected. This might happen to me. And then I was like, I remember my mom told me once, maybe this is not it for you. This is not the industry for you.
You
And I was,
tried it.
yeah, she tried to be nice, but I was like, no, because for you, you give up easily, but rejection is,
Yeah.
But after a while, it started looking pretty clear to me like maybe this is not the industry for you. First
Yeah.
of all, you don't enjoy the parties and everything, but
Mm.
it's what you've been told. The only reason you're here is that it's what you've been told and it's what is glamorized or glorified. It's what you see on TV. So this
Mm.
is the only influence that you have, really.
Yeah.
And then I also struggled with, so if you're not this, then who are you? If
Yeah.
you're not a model, then who are you? Can you leave? Then who are you going to be? You're not going to be anyone or anything.
Yeah.
So I struggled with that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back. But so it was like one foot in, one foot out. And somewhere in all the noise, I'm like, but I'm Cissy. That should be enough. It will be enough. And
Yeah.
having people reminding you, like, I think talking about it is also important because
Yes. Yes.
people are not able to talk to you about what they don't know. But
Mm.
being, like I said, that person in your corner, talking about it and all them reminding you, like, you're enough. You don't need this to have an identity. Or
Mm.
even if you feel like you don't have an identity and you feel like you want to find an identity, it's okay to step away from that and try to find your identity.
Did you have friends who would tell you this, or was it something that your mom is the one who helped? Because I know in when we are young, sometimes we give each other some terrible advice.
Yeah,
If someone like rejects you, you're like, no, they just hate you. Like,
yeah, yeah,
do this. Like, maybe try this. Next thing you know, some of those friends are advising you try doing what other people are doing. Then you lose yourself in the fact
yeah.
that doing the things that you hate about like those other people. Did you find some really good friends who would at least tell you, you know what, like you said, are these your friends who told you this, or was it only your mom who was telling you maybe it's just not for you?
I had a friend who I would confide in, who I would feel comfortable telling, no. So I would tell her and she would hype me up. She's like, no, but Sissy, you're gorgeous, you're this, you're beautiful. And she would be
Mm,
very, very specific. She's like,
yeah.
you have nice eyes, you have a nice skin, your smile
Mm,
is beautiful. Things
mm,
that were really uplifting. And I really appreciate that. But I also feel like, even though it wasn't right that I had all these friends that I hung out with and then leave,
mm,
it's kind of worked to my advantage because then I would have a group. Like, I remember, like, I felt like, okay, I don't have a personality, or I'm less with my friends like the pals, but at least I'm a model. So that's my thing. Like, I'm a
Mm,
model. So
mm,
I'm like, so now if I'm not that, then what am I going to be? Nothing. What value do I even have to talk about or anything? But
mm,
also having model friends who are frustrated with the
mm,
modeling. They're like, this modeling is not adding any value to my life. It's like this. And
mm.
them saying, you know what? I'm going to quit. I'm going to leave. And they didn't mean it because they stayed, but because for me, I was struggling. Like if someone says, I'm like, yeah, then. So
Yeah,
from
yeah,
them saying that, it gave me more confidence to say, I'm going to leave.
yeah,
And yeah, when the universe closes one door, it opens another. And that door was closed for me, but it wasn't the end of my life because then I got into wine and being a sommelier.
oh
And
yes, I
yeah,
remember we used to call you to tell us which wine to buy.
yeah, and I felt so good. But I mean, looking back in terms of growth, it wasn't good that I'm jumping from identifying with a particular thing and then jumping on to another instead of
Yeah,
just being Cissy. So I had good moments of like just be Cissy, but oh, there's another flashy thing now. This is what I'm going to be. This is
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But I think that's what young being a young adult is about. You're trying
yeah,
to figure out yourself, and later on, when you look back in hindsight, you might have a lot of regret. But if you focus on the good things, you learn. For instance, the connections that you have. Like for me, I hated, like, I don't want to remember much about my partying days. But
yeah,
then when I remember it, I'm like, oh my God, I actually made a huge network of friends. Like, I have friends who are friends of friends, and
yeah,
so many people who people will be like, how did you meet this person? But it was because we were drinking sometime at a
yeah,
party and we talked and we opened up and talked with each other. So you, when you look back in hindsight, you're like, there are actually good things about some of these mistakes that I thought I
yeah,
was making. So I think that's the case for you. That's also experience because that's you learn the hard way. We all
yeah.
learn the hard way.
And I
Otherwise,
feel
you
like it
wouldn't be who
has an
you are right
impact
now.
on me right now because with rejection, I don't take it personally or anything like that.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, we
exactly.
keep
Yeah, you're
moving.
like, oh, I've been there. I've been
It
there.
has built resilience in me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. Okay, so maybe now you can tell us about the huge change of your life.
Yeah, so like I was saying, I felt like okay, I'm all the way there. I'm now this and I'm like, okay, everything I admired in people, I feel like I'm that now. I'm, like this.
Mm,
I have a boyfriend, I have a car, I have this,
mm,
everything that I admired about the people I saw. I have the fancy phone, I
mm.
have, the closet, I have like 30 pairs of shoes and all those shallow things that seem
Which,
important when you're in your early
which we
20s.
think, no, they don't say early 20s. There are so many people in their 30s and 40s who do think that this is arriving. Like owning a phone is you have arrived. So I think it's something that people struggle with even late until their 60s or 70s. Like we always think, if I could just have this, I'll be happy. If
Mm,
I could just
yeah,
have this, I'll be something. That is
yeah,
something that is not limited to age. To be honest, I do believe I have seen a lot of older people, like even me myself, I had to find myself in that space where like I now try to question myself, why do I really need to buy this? Because there's a point where I would look around, I'm like, oh, I have this. But then as soon as you get it, you want something else. Like you're
yeah.
never
The
satisfied.
rat chase never stops. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. And so
Anyway,
how
yeah,
did you end up
I'm
there?
lucky. I feel now that you've said that people continue with this for a long time.
Mm.
I guess I just based on my mom of how most of these things didn't mean anything to
Yeah,
her.
yeah, yeah.
But so I always thought, okay, there is an age over which it doesn't. And I got lucky that early in my 20s,
Mm.
I realized that I'm still empty even with all this stuff. Because
Yeah.
I remember he was like, I was with a good guy, but I just felt, oh, I could do better. I could, And then even after I left, which was probably for the best because, he deserved someone better, but also I wasn't in the right headspace to be there.
Mm.
Having that accident just made me realize the fragility of life.
Mm.
Going from in yoga, it's called rajasic, when you're always energetic, you're on go, go, go. You have an agenda, everything is like you have a schedule. I'm doing this from this time to this time, you're always busy. And
Mm.
now I went from that, and people like that, rajasic people, tend to go from that. to just crashing, going through depression and
Mm.
all the sad feels. And being on bed rest forced me to go through that. Not being able to go play tennis, go to the bar and drink, try to make new friends. Because I was the kind of person, even when no one of my friends could go to the bar, I would then go to the bar and find people because I was like, these ones are boring. No wonder they don't want to go out, but I'm going to find the people I want to hang out with. I'm going to find the people I did dream about, this perfect clique and things like that.
Mm.
But then being on bed rest, having pain in my chest, affecting my posture, going from the energetic girl who can do anything to actually being limited, seeing what it's like for not fully, I wouldn't say that I've experienced what people experience who are physically limited,
Mm.
but just having a hint of that
Mm.
and
You
it
have no
having,
control of your
yeah,
body, and yeah.
no control over the body, just having a hint of that was so humbling. It
Yeah.
was so humbling. It put a lot into perspective.
Yeah.
And again, the universe has its own way of doing things that ends up working.
Yeah.
I remember resorting to, okay, I'm gonna party more the minute I could walk. Like when I was like, okay, I can walk, there was still pain in my chest and I was
What
still,
what exactly happened? Maybe you can just, if you don't mind, you can just
yeah.
tell us
So I
something.
was driving back home.
Mm.
It was in the night and I had a small car.
Mm.
It was a weekend. I think it was Friday evening,
Mm.
late in the night. And then the person coming from the other side had a bigger car, full
Mm.
lights, and I think they were drunk.
Mm.
So they were coming head on. It was either going to be a collision or I had to drive off the road. So, in
Mm.
a rush, out of instinct,
Mm.
I hit an electric pole.
Mm.
But luckily, I was wearing a seat belt.
Yeah.
It was so much force that, like, I jumped forward, but because I was wearing a seat belt, it held me back. And
Mm.
then there was so much pain in my chest. You know how the seat belt goes,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
holds you from this point. So
Mm.
there was so much pain in my chest. I was bruised on my fingers. I don't know. I think the seatbelt holding me back and,
Mm.
the car turning around and hitting back and forth. I got bruises on my palms and the back of my feet.
Mm.
And I remember coming out and feeling like I can't breathe. It's so heavy. And the other person just went, I hope they're okay.
Mm.
And the whole neighborhood, the electricity, it was like a total blackout.
Mm.
And I remember security guards, I think it was like a minister or someone important who lived there. So they came out with guns and, like what's going on. And then they saw me, they're like, oh, are you okay? And all. And I remember the first thing I said, oh my God, I need to call my mom because I felt
Mm.
like this is it. This is it for
Mm.
me. Because
Mm.
the car was leaking. And then, Jesus Christ, that was like, it was a low moment, but it was even lower in my reaction. I'm like, oh my God, my car. Like, you know,
Wow. You weren't thinking about your health, you were thinking about the car.
no, I was thinking about my
Yeah.
health. I'm like, oh my God, I'm bruised and all. And then, touching my face and all. And
And
I
then you
couldn't
saw the
breathe.
car.
Yeah, but then I saw the car. I'm like, oh my God, my car. Now this thing that's made me feel whatever I'm feeling is
Mm.
going to and I was trying, and they're like, get away from it. It might blow up because it's leaking and all. And I was like, oh my God. So when the shock came down and everything, that's when I really felt the pain in my chest.
Mm.
And luckily, I was close to home. I remember calling the person I was with, going to the hospital, and I was never prepared for what was going to happen after that.
Yeah.
Like the physical challenge, which lucky for me, I live in a world of science
Mm.
through physical therapy that was fixed, but the mental trauma, oh
Mm.
my God, that was the worst. I went out drinking every time. I did not like being alone because then I would have all these flashes in my head, and just being still would, because then you're forced to deal with your traumas. I didn't know how to, and it was just endless partying and being limited physically. Like even if I wanted to go for a yoga class or whatever, I would struggle.
Mm.
And I remember that's the time I met my first, okay, not first yoga teacher, but I would say the first yoga teacher who really had an impact on me.
Mm.
And she told me, I told her we actually met in a bar, and
Mm,
she told me, oh yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, blah 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 blah. You know, if you're dealing with this, you can do yoga. It's helpful and all. I'm like, okay, but I'll first get clearance from my physio, and then I was cleared. Like, oh yeah, yoga is good. Just be mindful. Remember to always go slow and all. And
mm,
so I went to yoga, and because of my physical background,
mm,
I was really good with the asanas, so it
mhm,
boosted my ego as well. And
mm,
because of that ego boost, I wanted to go back because I was like, I thrive here. This could be my thing. I thrive here.
mm,
You know?
mm,
But then because of my chest, I was forced to like slow down,
mm,
and it got to a point where I had no choice but to go from trying to do all the poses to
mm,
actually having to prioritize my chest, because if I didn't, then it
yeah,
was painful, and
mm,
pain is very humbling.
yeah,
And so always reminding the teacher, like, oh, I would like something for my chest, because it was a group yoga setting. But she
mm,
was really, really good. Like she knew how to take care of everyone, and
yeah,
the cues she would cue the modifications. So
mm,
just feeling safe enough in most classes, not always, but in most sessions, to prioritize that my chest is not ready for that, my right
mm,
wrist is struggling,
mm,
helped a lot, taking me back to yoga over and over again.
yeah,
And it went from a point of, okay, I'm going to go do yoga asanas, just be physical, and then we're going to go out, we're going to do this, we're going to party, to
mm,
being really interested, because everyone was like, oh my God, you're so good at this, you're
mm,
so good at yoga and all
yeah,
that. Maybe you should be a yoga teacher. I was like,
yeah,
yeah, I should be that. I should be that. But I thought about it and I'm like, okay, I'm interested, but how do I go from here and all?
mm,
And the thing about yoga is that the more you go back, you might feel like you're scheduling it into your life, but at the end of the day, you find yourself scheduling yourself into yoga,
yeah, yeah,
because the benefits keep getting better, especially if you find the right teacher.
mm,
And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, people are saying I should do this, and I think I should because, I'm so good at it. But it
mm,
actually feels good. It feels
yeah,
good mentally, it feels good
yeah,
physically, and my ego is loving it.
mm,
So maybe I should actually pursue this. And then I started reading about it
mm.
and wondering how I should do it. And then I think the final nail in the coffin was when my teacher told me, Cissy, I think you would make a really good yoga teacher.
Oh, I think that's a really good affirmation,
Yeah.
mostly from a teacher. Yeah.
'Cause when she told me that, I
Mm,
just knew it's like that's all I was waiting for me to make the move.
mm,
I
mm,
started
mm,
doing research. It's like the minute she said that, I just knew what to do. Looking
mm,
at places where to go. This is ridiculously priced. This is out of my tax bracket. This is okay, but the
mm,
location and all. And I was
yeah.
like, why don't I just go to where it all started, to India? And so I
Mm,
ended up in India, and oh, that was surreal. It
mm,
was such an amazing experience. The most
yeah.
beautiful people, the most beautiful culture, and it
Mm,
was amazing.
yeah.
And it just, I wouldn't say that that was like being in India studying yoga in Rishikesh is like switching on and off my light bulb, but it was like the light was getting brighter with each
Mm,
passing day. I
yeah.
just felt like it's getting better and better. And then I was in a phase where I would have like an episode of yoga where I go 30 days yoga, no drinking, no that, no that. And then maybe I would have like a week of relapsing, 2 weeks, because then I'm bored with this quiet life that's focused on this, because the shiny objects of life, we're going to dress up, we're going to do this, and then wanting that, and also just growing and you
Mm,
know, trying to tame my ego, or even accept that that is the ego, that's not who I am. Yeah,
mm,
and slowly but gradually,
mm,
it went a little bit low on the flashy stuff and a
mm,
little bit broader on the yoga and self-awareness
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So when I read your blog, it was saying it's your accident helped you find your purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us how. Okay, so you go to India. There's a time you started also traveling a lot in Europe. You came to Germany sometime.
Yeah.
Was this for a retreat or classes, or were you doing some business or something like that here?
No, I think at this point I was just like, I went from okay, I need to have this, I need, to be in a relationship like this, I need to this, to let me just go and see the world. I have my time
You
now,
just
I
start to
don't have
travel, yeah.
kids.
Mm,
Yeah, so I'm
mm,
like, let me go see the world. And
mm.
then yeah, that's the traveling of here, there, and
Ah,
everything.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's quite interesting. So how did you, because I can see like clearly the poses that you do, you got healed. Was it the yoga or was it the after some time your body adjusted to it? The
Mm.
healing of your chest.
Yeah,
Did
so
yoga
at
help with
this
that?
point, yeah, yoga did help a lot with my
Mm,
chest, the breathing,
mm,
the heart openers, the
mm,
strengthening. It helped a
mm.
lot with my chest. And I'm lucky that I didn't break anything. I was just bruised. And of
Okay.
course, even when you're bruised,
Mm,
your body is scared. It will
mm,
heal, but
mm,
if you don't do anything about it, it might not heal correctly,
mm,
and it might heal correctly, but it will take time. So it took time, but it did happen, all thanks to yoga. Like I said, my teacher was really amazing, the
mm,
modifications and everything, it healed.
mhm,
But then I stayed still because of, first I was impressed, like how it healed me
mm,
physically, but I was still struggling mentally. And at this point I didn't know whether it would really heal, but I liked that it felt good going there for the physical asanas. And
mm,
also it fed into my ego when people kept telling me, "You're so good at yoga, wow, look at the way she does this and all."
yeah.
Yeah, so continuous practice really helped me do the physical bit of yoga really well.
Mm,
I think I've been blessed and I'm lucky that I am the kind of person who can persevere or be consistent.
yeah.
I think yeah, that's an influence that I credit to my father and I'm so grateful for.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, so
But I
that
guess
from that.
it must have taken a lot of strength for you to push through the pain and keep going and going and
Mhm.
going.
Yeah,
And like you said, it fed so many of these other things in your life, like giving you the affirmation, the
yeah.
confirmation that this is it. How has how do you view yoga right now? Like, do you because I know like you had a studio right in Uganda.
I used to go to studios. I used to teach at studios.
Teach at studios. How was this for you also, like coming from a person who was helped? How did
Hmm.
it feel for you to help other people to find that love for yoga? Because I
Yeah,
know you were really passionate about it.
yeah. It's the fact that it did something like that for me, which was unbelievable.
Yeah,
That I felt like this could be helpful to someone else out there.
yeah, yeah.
So the fact that it helped me and me getting into the knowledge of it, understanding what it is, getting a
Mm,
proper education about it, made me
mm,
realize there's so many things yoga can help with,
mm,
and so many people struggle with these things.
mm,
So it
mm.
I found it's because my purpose was like it helped me, it can help someone else too.
Yeah.
And people have been telling me I'm good at this. So I
Mm,
was confident that if I teach it the way I was taught it and the best way I know, it's
yeah.
going to be helpful to someone else.
Yeah.
And that really showed in my teaching a lot because I had so much empathy for people who are struggling with the poses.
Yeah.
And so I could cue modifications,
Mm,
adjustments of, if you do it like this, you get the same benefit. And
mm,
some people really like that because they felt like it's inclusive, while
mm,
others who are struggling with their own egos
mm,
still wanted to do, the hard stuff to prove
mm.
something to themselves.
Yeah.
And me holding space for that, knowing, okay, if they're like, I can tell you're not yet there, but if you insist, me knowing exactly what they're trying to feed, and,
Yeah.
well done, wow, that's impressive, to feed into their egos, and then they would feel more comfortable to let that go and relax because they've gotten the approval they need. I think they would realize it's skin deep and then
Yeah.
let that go.
So you were the perfect teacher because you had gone through all these other things that
Experience does
yeah.
really help a lot,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
That's good. And how did your journey to Norway come about?
So yeah, coming here, it was from because I was, for the most part of the pandemic when we were in the thick of it in
Mm,
2020. I was in
yeah.
Mauritius,
Mm,
and I got lucky to be there because then the everything shut down and I was stranded there for 9 months.
mm,
I had a lot of growth there as well because I was like, okay, I want to do something with my life. What's the next step for me?
yeah.
The yoga is nice, but I don't know if I still want to be doing one-on-one sessions or just going to class and
Yeah.
like the kind of mental and physical energy it would exert. I was like, I
Mm,
don't know if I'm still in this headspace. I felt like I was starting to evolve
mm, mm,
and having so much time in Mauritius, non teaching and all, and being okay with it, like not having physical sessions. Because I think when I was having physical sessions in 2019, I would teach like 9, 10 hours a day. And it
wow.
could show physically I was getting really strong, but also really exhausted all the
Mm,
time. Having that rest in 2020 made me realize I don't want to go back to that. It got to a point
mm,
where I felt like I was giving the other person what they needed,
but
but
you
it
weren't
was
getting
taking
back.
away from me, and I didn't have enough time to recover. Because you know how the economy is in Uganda, you need to
Mm,
survive. So I was like, okay, I want to be, a bit smarter about how I go about this.
yeah.
How do I
Yeah.
still deliver without giving away so much of myself?
Mm,
And then, so I was in Mauritius from March to December
mm,
2020.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, it's been nice being here and exploring, but now it's Christmas. I want to go back home. I want to see my family and
Mm,
everyone. And so I went back home. It was a nice Christmas. And I was like, actually, it's not so bad if I stay with my mom because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go at this point. I
mm,
was like, I don't want to go back to that teaching, the rat chess, which
mm,
means I shouldn't be spending so much on things like rent and all. So I'm like,
yeah.
I'm gonna stay here. And then this is when I was starting, I think, to make yoga mats and things like that.
Mm,
And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take it slow, but I'm gonna make plans for this summer. And at this point, I was newly single, just like, okay, I'm putting myself out there. And then a friend of mine told me about this dating app, Tinder. And I'm like, okay, I will
Tinder
join.
is active in
Actually,
Uganda.
yeah, actually, I
Wow.
knew about it. I had tried to use it before, but it was, Tinder sometimes is just so
Wait,
annoying.
so when you're using Tinder in Uganda, is
Mm.
it an international, like, are you meeting people internationally or is it only like local?
You have both options. One is with a subscription, and the other one is without.
That's okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
my
that. I
friend,
thought
she
it
told
only
me
works
about
there.
it. And
Mm,
she's like, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm into the dating scene right now. And,
mm,
I'm trying to do this yoga business, my yoga mats and all. So I don't know if I
mm,
can do that and all right now.
yeah.
It's like, okay. So, I go on with my life and all. And then after like, I think a month, she comes back. She's like, you should give it a try.
Had
So,
she been successful for
yes.
her?
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's
Okay.
like,
Because
it's
I was pushing
amazing.
for something you have not found.
Yeah, so in the beginning, that's what she did, and I was like, yeah,
Mm,
no,
yeah.
there wasn't any motivation, and I was like, I'm focused on something else right now. I'm, just trying to get my business going, Miss
Mm,
Independent, very zen and all. And then
mm,
she comes back a month later. She's like, oh, yeah, I've met this amazing person on Tinder. I didn't think I would meet them there. So you should try it. It's for real. I'm like, really? You met someone real, sensible on Tinder? Like, yeah. So she tells me, do this and this and this. Because I was also like, the dating scene in Uganda is so small and I'm not sure I'm ready to mingle because I know
also,
where everyone in Kampala.
online dating is something that like is so scary for we don't trust people back home.
Yeah.
How was that for you? That's quite interesting.
No,
I
but
didn't.
then because I had plans for the summer to come to Europe, because I was like, okay, I haven't been traveling a lot.
Mm.
2020, everything happened,
Okay.
and then
Mm,
2021, I wasn't so keen to leave home because I was
mm,
like, I want to be home for a bit. So it was
yeah.
coming to maybe at this point it was like over a year,
Mm-hmm.
a few months of non-traveling.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this summer I'll go to Europe, yeah.
Mm,
Then I'm like, okay, where do I want to go? I'm like, okay, obviously I have to go to Germany. I have, family there, visit my sister and all.
mm,
I was like, okay, I've always wanted to go to Norway, but I've never been. So I'll go to Norway. And then that's about the same time my friend comes back with that Tinder idea. And I'm like,
okay.
oh, okay, I'll put Norway. Maybe I can make friends there or, meet someone there, just
Mm,
for my
mm,
holiday and all. And then I connected with my now partner. And
mm.
then we started chatting and chatting here and there. And he seemed like a really decent person. And I'm like, what is this sensible human being doing on this app? Like, this is where people come to be naughty and,
It's
so
actually
what
quite
is the
interesting.
gentleman?
In the Western world, Tinder is actually a place where people go to meet people. Like, I think it's like not our culture to meet people in that way. So it's
Mm,
always foreign to us. But I do know, like, I have two friends. I have a friend who found their partner. They are now married. I also know a relative of mine who met someone on a dating app and they are together. And like, it's so normal. Like, here, it's like, it's a really normal thing in the West. But for us at home, we're like, man, you're thirsty or you're just looking for, like,
yeah.
looking for, like,
There was that
yeah,
stigma around it. So I was like,
yeah, yeah.
what is this? I'm like, okay, something will show up eventually. But then he continued being normal. And then I'm like, okay, I went from, I have plans to go here. So, I'll meet someone there and, just chatting in advance, like pre gaming, so that when I get there, I know them a bit, just to hang out for
Mm,
while I'm there. Maybe there will
mm,
be a better tour guide for the place. And then, because I've done things like couch surfing before, I've had some bad experiences as well,
mm,
and, some good ones. But
yeah,
then I'm like, okay,
yeah.
and then we start chatting, we really get chatty, and I'm like, oh my God, we got to a point where we couldn't go a day without video calling each other.
Mhm, mhm,
And because I was planning to come in August for the summer, and now I was moving my plans to earlier to July. And at this point, we're
mm.
having lockdown. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go in July and, meet them and also, yeah,
That's
but July,
2021, right?
yeah. But then July, I ended up having to do more for work. Like my yoga mat business wasn't, things weren't moving as fast as I thought they would.
Mm,
I pushed to August. And then in August, I think it was like 2 weeks into August, that's when I came. But I was like, I don't know, meeting, like after talking to him for a while, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I want to meet this person like in Norway where I have no leverage or anything. I would rather meet in German. So it's like we meet
yeah,
halfway.
you have family.
Yeah, if things go wrong, I just go back to my sister and
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
If things go wrong in Norway, where am I going to go?
Mm, yes, yes.
Yeah. And so I tell him, and he was so open. He's like, "Yeah, I'll fly out to German and all. Like I have work, but I can fly out for the weekend and see you." So I was like, "Okay." Then I felt very comfortable. I'm like,
Oh yes, you actually came to Germany in 2021. I
"Yeah,
remember texting you and asking if you can pass by Cologne, and you were, I think, in
yes,
Frankfurt or something like that. Is it Frankfurt? You were
yeah,
saying
yeah." I was in
yes,
Frankfurt, so
yes.
I was so confident. I'm like, "Worst case scenario, things don't work out. He goes back to Norway. I continue with my trip and
Mm,
figure out how to see Norway." But the entire time we were together, I kept asking him about Norway, what are the good things to do there and all.
mm,
And he didn't seem interested in talking about that. He was more interested in spending time with me, getting
mm,
to know me, and we actually clicked.
mm,
And so he had to come back after that weekend, and by then Norway was closed because of
mm.
COVID
Yeah,
restrictions.
yeah.
And then he told me, "Oh, let's figure out a way to get you into Norway." And, because I was vaccinated, but I
Mm,
didn't have the EU vaccination card. And that's the only thing that Norway was allowing.
mm,
So
mm,
we found a doctor in German who did a background check on my immunization from Uganda, and he saw they were legit. He looked at the codes, and because of that, he gave me the EU vaccination card. And
mm,
then I came to Norway. So my summer plans of going here, there, just ended up being my summer plans to Norway the entire time. And we clicked so much, we couldn't stay away from each other. It was amazing.
mm.
And my trip came to an end. It looked pretty obvious that we don't want to spend time away from each other. So at this point, it was pretty clear that we just want to be with each other We don't care about seeing the world. Like we do both love seeing the world, but at this point, we are more interested in being together than
Mm,
being apart. And then when my visit came to an end, I had to go back home. And then we had talked about, living together, but it didn't make sense for him to move to Uganda because he had a job here.
mm,
While me, on the other hand, my job was flexible in a sense that I was starting my own business right at the beginning,
mm,
that I could still be able to do it here. It would require a bit more market research, but I
mm,
could start the same business here. It would just be a different market, but
mm,
I could still have my business. So while I was here, I did some research to see the market for yoga mats and stuff, what was on the market and all. And then I remember thinking, okay, but if I'm gonna be there, maybe I need a job to feel secure and all.
mm.
And then I got a job as a marketing specialist.
Did you get it when you were back home in Uganda? Because I know there's always like this whole bureaucracy, in, like getting a job to like visa and all that stuff. How did
No,
you
so
get it?
I got it the period, the time I was here. It's like, yeah, I,
Oh, okay. So you got the job when you were still on your visiting visa.
yeah, because then we were thinking, okay, it was obvious we want to be together. We want to,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
so I'm like, okay, but I need this. And also, yeah, I got that. And then before I left, I applied for the work visa. And then
Mm,
I went back home. And then
mm.
we started missing each other. And yeah, I remember going back home one weekend, we were missing each other, and then I applied again for another tourist visa. But
Mm,
this time I applied for a year. I was qualified to get a year long. And I think because I came for like 78 days on the first visit, so I still had like a few days, maybe
mm,
like 12 days to make 90 days.
mm,
And so, yeah, I got that and I came. I'm like, because in Norway, you're allowed, if you have an application for a skilled worker, you're
mm,
allowed to wait for your response
mm,
inside Norway, even if your
mm.
visa runs out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what we did. So I came back and I didn't want to go back. I'm like, okay, let's, just hang out while I wait for my visa and all. And we never looked back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out. That's an
Okay.
amazing story. It's scary for so many people, but
It
then
was scary for me.
yeah,
I
when
was
it's
like,
leaving
okay.
your home and finding a new place. I know there's a actually an influencer in Germany. She's huge now because she makes content for expats,
Mm.
and she said she moved here for a guy from Canada, and then they broke up. And
Oh,
she was
yeah.
like, "Now what do I do? Should I go back?" So she starts like she looks for a job, and then she
Mm.
starts making content of expats and stuff. And she now started a business for expats, like a business where it's like where expat girls meet who are trying to start businesses here. And now recently, the EU, like the EU is even using her content. They even used her. They chose her mangas like a specific group of women and took them somewhere recently to do some research, I think some stuff for them. So
Wow.
yeah, so she always tells her story in that way, like imagine this started off because she finally found another guy, but
Yeah.
this relationship didn't work out, but she decided to stay anyways, and
Yeah.
she started working, and then she pursued something different, and now she's like a huge I was working for a company and we were using her as
Yeah.
our influencer, and she's like a huge deal in Germany, actually in
Wow.
Europe, yeah, because
Oh
of
my God.
because of our relationship. So it's interesting how sometimes something like that can lead you into what you are actually meant to be doing.
Right?
Are you still working in this job that you got at the beginning, or
Mhm.
did you, yeah,
Yeah.
how has it been for you adjusting and moving away from home?
Honestly, in the beginning people would tell me, "Wow, you're so brave. You're so brave." And
Mm,
in my head I'm like, "Okay, yeah, it's scary meeting someone like that and all." But I didn't understand what they fully meant. And now, after a while being here, I see how challenging it is to move as an adult, especially to a non English speaking country.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my God. Like people will talk to you, you need directions, you need this, but to invite you knowing that you're going to make them speak English at these social gatherings,
Mm.
No one really wants that.
Mm.
They don't mean bad for you, but they just don't want to have to switch to English. And
Mm.
then you try to, be part of the social groups, what's
Mm.
happening here, what's happening there.
Mm.
There, the language is right there. You won't understand anything. Because I remember I used to enjoy going to like quiz bars with friends, and I
Mm.
tried it here for like quiz night.
Mm.
Everything was in Norwegian. I couldn't quite understand what they were saying, and my group felt like it was weak by one person because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
my language barrier.
Mm.
And you can't really watch the news and things like that.
Mm.
And so it's come to be like the main thing in my life, trying to learn the language,
Mm.
because now I've fully accepted this is my home now. So learning the language and seeing how limiting it is and how challenging it can be as an adult
It
is,
it is humbling. I know. I have family here, and when I first came, I had my mom. Actually, she made me not learn German because every time I left class, instead of practicing my German, I came home and we were speaking English and we
yeah, because
talk.
at the same time they don't have the patience to deal with your broken language, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
oh, I had a long day at work, I can't do this right now, I'm sorry, no.
Like, no, for my mom, for her, she literally like didn't have time to speak German. She's like, dude, me, I say what I can. It's enough. They understand. So every time I came home, we were speaking English. And then it's later on when I would find myself like in a situation where, like, one time I was working at this cafeteria and my German was, because I studied German, my German was is relatively good, but that's when I was humbled. Like, someone would come in and they would say something and I wouldn't actually know what they're saying. And yet, what they're saying is something so simple, but because I'm already nervous, and then I'll go take the wrong orders, and my boss would always look at me like, again. Like, I'm
There's
like,
that
I'm
judgment,
like,
they
yeah.
anything, but you feel it, you're like, oh.
Yeah, I'm like, I actually know what this, like, in hindsight, I know what this person ordered for, but just that fear of, will I understand what the person is saying? And then it limits you and the whole culture shock. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think you grow, but for some people it never really works out for them. It can really have a huge mental toll on you, mostly with the whole culture, because Europe is completely different.
It's so different. Like I've even struggled with, how you talk back home, you're using your hands, you're just talking like, and
Mm.
people have thought I'm arguing or I'm, being quarrelsome, like aggressive, just I'm like,
I don't know how is it for you, but here for me, like at uni, I would always tell people, I'm like, guys, I'm African. This is me. I'm trying, and I'm like, trust me, there are worse people back home. Until my best friend here came to Uganda for my wedding, and she
yeah,
was like, now I get it. Because
oh
at first she just like she was the first. She was I think she's the one person who I connected with who just like would just be like you. But I think at somewhere in her head she would always be like, I think Rest is lying about the fact that like this is normal back home. And then
yeah,
when she came for my wedding and met all my cousins, like imagine she met B Farm. So imagine that. Like she met everyone in such a party mood because it was on my wedding. So everyone was like
a
jumping and
noise.
crazy and loud, talking on top of each other. And she's like, I
Oh
told
my
her, I
god,
hope now you understand why I am the way I am. I grew up
yeah.
around these
No,
people.
I struggle so much because people here will think you're loud or you're this.
Mm.
Norwegians don't tell you. They talk to you and you just see they don't talk to you again.
Oh.
No one complains or says anything to you. They don't complain. They don't try to make it hard. They just simply don't come back. That's it.
Mm.
That's their
Well,
reaction.
that's interesting. Germans are interested in actually fight because I think they're already like they have this whole thought of Africans are loud and this, but many Germans are really interested in you. Of course, there are those who will be like, "Ugh, this person is like this," but okay, I was at the university and I had so many international friends, but
Yeah.
because some friendships with the Germans didn't work out, but I had a lot of international friends, which was helpful. But like I can notice at work, like when in the workspace and all that, some would be really interested in finding out why you are the way you are, and others would always have always that thing of looking at you like, "Eh, she's like this, she's like this."
Too
And
much.
to me,
She's
I don't care. Like I don't care. But eventually, I have realized that most of the places I went to, I connected more with like people from like Eastern Europe or people from like America or something like that, it's so much easier because their characters are almost similar to
Hmm.
like
Yeah, there's
African. Yeah.
something called yenta something love,
Mm.
where what you have is supposed to be enough. You can't, be
You guys are too social.
very out there. It's the way they naturally are.
Mm, mm,
You don't complain. It's kind of complicated to explain. And then Norwegians have this thing that, maybe I'm stereotyping. If I am, I'm sorry, but they have this thing where you basically have a small group of friends that you've grown up with from such a young age, and those
mm.
are your friends for life. It's not like you can just be friends with anyone that you don't know.
Oh.
Because I remember in the beginning when I would meet people, oh my God, you're a yoga teacher. Yeah, me too. Let me follow you on Instagram. Let's connect. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they don't follow you back, which is okay because not everyone is entitled to that. And I do know them. But they won't really respond to your messages or anything like that. I remember
Mm,
telling this yoga girl, yoga teacher here in Norway, and we had
mm.
connected before when I was outside. I'm like, oh yeah, you're in Oslo, let's connect and all. And she just liked the message, and that was it.
What?
Yeah. And then
Ah,
I'm like, oh, this is not very nice. But then I realized she just doesn't want to. She probably has her group of friends. And then I saw it repeating. It was like rings and repeat. Then I'm like, maybe it's me, maybe it's the way I'm asking her. And then
mm.
I found out many foreigners struggle with the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, Norwegians are like that. It's really
So
hard to
you
get through.
you found it easier to connect with the foreigners. Do you have a lot of like expert
I
community?
wouldn't say I have many friends, but also because naturally I'm like that. I think I learned very early that I just need a few good people. I thrive like that, where I don't feel overwhelmed by a big
Mm,
group of people.
mm,
But yeah, I've kind of at this point stopped trying to, like be friends with the locals or anything like that. Because actually, some of them would even comment on my Instagram, oh, yeah, I hope you're enjoying Norway and all. And they're like, I'm sorry if you meet Norwegians and they come off as cold or rude. We're not like that. We're just really shy and timid,
yeah.
but we're warm on the inside. So I'm like, okay, it wasn't just me. They're naturally like that. This
Mm,
is how they are. They keep to themselves. Like, even if you try to make friends, they'll hang out with you in the summer. But
mm,
when the winter comes, you'll never hear from them. They like have their five, six group of friends that they hang out with most of the time. That's it. Like, one Norwegian girl actually told me she wanted to play volleyball as a kid, but
mm,
her parents switched her school. So she got into this school and the volleyball team was full. There was no space for her. And in that team, everyone knew everyone. So there's no way she could join. So she ended up not playing volleyball. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I hear people really stick with the people they know. You just can't be friends with anyone just like that. You need to know them from back then. I was like,
wow.
interesting for a person coming from Uganda. And also it's
Yeah.
very individualistic.
Yeah, that's it can be a whole culture shock.
Yeah.
Europe is a mystery to many Africans. How has I recently spoke to Visi. I know you know
Mm,
Visi,
yeah.
and she was sharing about the whole influencer space. Are you doing this? Are you doing any of this stuff like with your career to find companies that are looking to partner with you to market their
Mm.
brands, or for you is it just always just for your own stuff?
At some point I was,
Mm,
but the reason I wasn't really authentic. It was just for the financial aspect.
mm,
And most of the times I didn't want to do what they were telling me to do or their guidelines or things like that.
mm,
But then because there was nothing else on the table, I'm like, okay, I think this is how it starts. You just, go with what's there. But then the more the influencers and the people I look up to in this industry, like when they were sharing their experiences and they were just warning against that, like, don't do something just because, there's nothing else available or you think you'll grow
yeah.
from that and all, overwhelming your crowd. So what I did is I went back and studied my crowd and really asked myself, what's the purpose of you wanting this?
Mm,
The fact that it was just like the financial aspect, I decided, and then also the finances they were offering weren't like I
Mm-hmm.
would say good enough in my opinion, because it was, we give you this and expect this number of deliverables. And then there's the fact that, as a person of color,
Mm.
it's like, you're not going to be considered or valued at the same level as someone else from the white race.
Yeah,
And then all
especially
these things
about.
just, they discouraged me. And I
Mm.
felt like you should stay and fight and all, but I'm like, just for money, there are so many ways I can make money.
Mm.
And then I just focused on my yoga, which really made me feel fulfilled and
Mm.
made me feel so purposeful. And eventually the money came in. And then I got comfortable. I'm like, this is like 10 times what this was going to give me.
Mm.
And this was such a hassle. But here I'm being authentic, I'm being myself, and I'm not overwhelming my community with pushing things on them, encouraging consumerism.
That's quite
And
interesting because uh, I feel like in this space right now, according
mm,
to what I'm observing on the internet, the more followers someone has, then it's like they are in the influencer space of, yes, companies are reaching out every second, doing this, and everyone, like people who have a huge following, always feel like, let me capitalize on this. I
mm.
haven't actually met someone who is choosing to say no. I am not going to use my followers to to make money off of them or something like that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because
Mm,
for me, I've looked at it in terms of longevity. I mean,
mm,
for how long am I going to push products on them until
yeah,
I'm just another influencer in the moment until they move on to something bigger?
yeah.
And then also my social media really blew up when I started providing value
Mm, mm.
to people,
So you're
as
giving,
opposed
not,
to, yeah,
yeah.
look at me doing this, look at me more like, are you struggling with something? How can I be of help?
Mm,
You have back pain. So I'm like, okay, if I go from that to pushing products that I don't even use myself,
mm,
how long can I maintain that? That looks like, something temporary, something shining, as opposed to me going with what I believe in
mm.
and build it, stay in it for the long run.
Yeah,
And yeah,
makes sense.
because of that, I've had to say no so many times. Oh, there's this meditation app, it does this, it does this. I'm like, does it
I don't
though?
even use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will I
But I
use
think
this?
you're
Yeah.
right. It's you have to find like it's sustainability. Like
Mhm.
you said, longevity. If it's not sustainable for you and you're not happy about it and
Yeah,
what you're doing works, I think that's good. I
yeah,
do believe that, of course, like for some people, like Visi was saying, for instance, she has always been like in the space, like she loves makeup and all that stuff. So for her, she's like, okay, because in the beginning, Visi would literally like, she's advertising Mac, and then she's telling people in Uganda, you guys can get these products at this and this place. And I was like, you really care for all your followers. Like she would be like, yeah, this cleanser is really good. And she
yeah,
talked about like Clinique. And then she's like, in Uganda, you can get this. And when I asked her about this, she said she had to stop doing that. Number one, because she doesn't know this product that she's recommending. And she has to realize that someone might use it and then later on come to her and be like, you said this and this. So she
yeah.
was like, now
Hold
she sticks
accountable.
to, yeah, she sticks to the business. But I think also it's for her, she actually wants to make money off of it
Yeah,
and not, yeah, do something different. So it's good to know that there are different types of influencers, because for
yeah.
us in our imaginations, I mean, for me, as me, I'm imagining the more followers, the more you want to capitalize on it, and not the more you want to give to your community back.
I do want to capitalize on it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm outside of the whole capitalism
Mm.
front and all. I'm
Yeah.
part of it, but I'm like, I want to capitalize on it in a sense that, I mean, I don't want to say what, the influencing bit, the products, the consumerism is not providing value, but I
Mm,
want to provide the kind of value that I feel like
mm,
aligns with me. And this
mm,
is what aligns with me, the yoga,
mm,
providing, being a teacher,
mm, mm,
practicing with something that's, something like yoga.
mm,
And I've worked where actually I had that bulb moment was the light bulb moment was I had this brand reach out to me. They have an app. If you want to lose weight, you're bloated, blah, 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 you enter.
Mm,
And then they had a list of guidelines that I had to follow making the video. By the time I was done making the video, the only thing that you could recognize from it and say this was done by Cissy is the fact that my face was there. None of it, like the guidelines, I had to follow everything.
mm,
And when I got the money, I at that point I really needed the money, which is also another thing that I understand if someone is doing it because, of their financial situation.
mm,
But then I wished while I was posting it, I was like, I wish I didn't need this.
mm, mm,
I wish I didn't need this. It did not perform well, and I wasn't surprised because that wasn't me. It wasn't authentic
mm.
at all. But also in that moment, I promised myself to not do something like that again.
Is there a possibility, for instance, for you to be the one to reach out to the companies for the things that you use and the things that you trust and be like, hey, I have this following. Have you tried
Yeah.
that? Is that something
Yes.
that you tried? Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried it, but it has felt like in such moments it has felt like now they have the upper hand. They can decide where
Mm,
this goes. They tell you, okay, for these deliverables, this is what we're willing to give you. Or then it's
mm.
like affiliate marketing. Oh yeah, we can give you like a percentage
A
on per
percentage.
something you sell, which is not bad, but I'm not looking to be like a salesperson. So
Mm,
there
mm,
wasn't alignment in that sense. And then
mm,
also some brands have reached out like, oh, this is owned by Venus Williams, we can send you samples, and in exchange for this, I'm like, you want to send me samples in exchange? I don't even know if I like it. What if I don't like it and you still expect the deliverables? So
mm,
I've said no so many times, but
mm,
I have brands that I have on my wish list that I'm like, if I was working with this brand, I would do it. If I was working with this, and
mm.
it takes time, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm privileged in a sense that I'm not in a position where I desperately need it.
Yeah. It will
Yeah.
take, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so no matter how long it takes, as long as it comes on the terms I want, as opposed to the stuff I keep getting in my, on my DMs and emails. Oh
Mm,
yeah, we want this, we
mm,
will give you this much and all. And I'm like, that's a little under more than I'm willing to work for, or And I'm
yeah.
like, I can have it as a side hustle because I don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Cissy. Can you maybe just before we conclude, just give any word of encouragement, wisdom, or anything for the people who are listening to this?
Yeah, if you're listening to this, first of all, thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. I'm so
Mm,
humbled to be here. And if there's one thing you can take away from this, I would say never stop being a work in progress.
mm,
Always be open to learning and
yeah.
sharing your knowledge,
Mm,
because sharing your knowledge is the only way to immortality. At the end of the day, no one gets out of life alive, but your knowledge can stay behind and,
yeah.
be spread on and on and on, so you can exist in that sense. But in order for you to have that knowledge, you have to keep learning. So stay
Yeah.
being a work in progress, learn and share and learn and share and keep rinsing and repeating and rinsing and repeating. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you too. This was really fun.
If you've journeyed this far, I'm sure you found Cissy's story as inspiring as I did. A heartfelt thank you to Cissy for her vulnerability and for living authentically in her purpose. I eagerly await the continued unfolding of your journey, Cissy. As we close this chapter of the year, I want to express my gratitude for your constant support. This will be our last episode. We will reconvene in mid January with more empowering stories. During the upcoming holidays, please take a moment to catch up on any missed episodes and please share them to impact other women. Please don't forget to participate in the survey, which is in the link in the description below, to help me enhance your She Center podcast experience. Your insights are invaluable. I wish you a joyous holiday season and a happy new year. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is She Center, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.